A strange floating island erupts from Tokyo Bay while the press questions Masayoshi about his identity. Joji informs the samurai flamenco that this is the product of From Beyond, an extraterrestrial organization that granted Torture the ability to create monsters. The group hacks the whole city's public screens to herald their presence. To that aim, Joji has been organizing a group known as the Flamengers with the intention of appointing Masayoshi as its commander. They then leave to meet Masayoshi's co-workers. When they arrive at their hidden base, they find it has been invaded by Ugly Toxic Poison, a captain of the From Beyond organization. The two find Toxic Poison to be a capable enemy and choose to get back after help arrives. Joji gathers 4 additional Flamengers, all of whom are bewildered about being purportedly selected as Red Rangers, and asks them to decide who gets to be commander while he goes to meet Poison. They decide to appoint Masayoshi as their leader after a brief discussion and head toward their enemy. Following Joji's noble sacrifice, the group confronts Poison. They initially defeat him after engaging in combat, but he quickly grows to monstrous proportions. Nonetheless, he once and for all is slain by the Flamengers' Flamin' Robo, a giant Gundam. This time, the Flamengers encounter an adversary who uses fire. The squad easily overcomes him and receives accolades, not just from the general public but also from the Prime Minister too. Masayoshi is still adjusting to his duty as a squad commander as they continue to combat monsters belonging to the From Beyond organization. He invites them to get out together on occasion, but they reject with various justifications. A TV program then interviews him about his job. Afterwards, Masayoshi pays a visit to Hidenori to distract himself from the day's events. Hidenori has been sheltering Mary from the public spotlight in his house, believing she has nowhere to go. A documentary has been made on the Flamengers as they battle creatures from beyond who are turning cities into ice ages. After fighting 2 monsters keeping several children hostage, they are immediately besieged by a massive number of enemies, making it even more difficult. Eventually, they overcome these opponents thanks to some collaboration and new weaponry, by commencing their characteristic maneuver of combining their equipment and producing Flamin' Robo. The crew quickly becomes friends with Masayoshi. They are astounded to learn that there will be more From Beyond creatures in the future. Masayoshi is under a lot of stress after learning that From Beyond includes approximately 60,000 monsters at their hands, especially after learning of a massive attack on Japan, scheduled for February 7. Joji persuades Prime Minister Shintaro Okazaki to make a statement on the condition that the leaders and their families be evacuated first, allowing the Flamengers 24 hours to select 5 individuals to accompany them to the shelters. Each Flamenger must now consider rescuing their treasured loved one. Masayoshi, on the other hand, is still undecided on who to pick. He heads to talk with Hidenori to tell him about the relocation, but is unable to do so after seeing Mary. As Masayoshi delivers his declaration, members of the From Beyond organization call all telephones in the region, announcing an impending attack the next day. Masayoshi is scooped up by Sumin Akira, who had already learned of the government's plans when the Prime Minister asserted a state of emergency. Masayoshi, feeling responsible, makes his own announcement for inspiring the terrified inhabitants to be superheroes in their own right, helping them secure shelters without difficulty. Hidenori takes Mo and Mizuki to his place the following day to hash things over with Mary before leaving for work. As the invasion by From Beyond commences, the organization brings forth a Destruction of Japan device, which plans to drill into Mt. Fuji and cause it to erupt. Joji reappears, bringing with him numerous Takutatsu heroes to aid in the war, and urging the populace to fight with them. Meanwhile, Masayoshi receives a phone call from the From Beyond organization's final member, Beyond Flamenco, whose looks are no different than Masayoshi. At the same time, the Flamengers are preparing to take on the destruction weapon. Beyond Flamenco gives several mysterious messages before killing himself, leading all of the From Beyond soldiers to vanish. With the devastation device still active, the Flamengers employ all of their Flamin' Robo's armaments to try to stop it, eventually stopping it in time and successfully escaping. With the restoration of peace in Japan, the Flamengers dissolve and resume their everyday lives. Meanwhile, Masayoshi, still intrigued by Beyond Flamenco's final words, is contacted by an American hero dubbed Mr. Justice, who defends him from the Bureau of Peace, which is chasing him along with the other Flamengers for unknown reasons. Justice explains to Masayoshi that the Japanese government, commanded by the Prime Minister, founded From Beyond to divert attention away from wars and enhance political standing in countries such as his own. Because the Flamengers were perceived as a danger to the Japanese government's goals, the Japanese authorities chose to frame them for attempting to topple the government. Mr. Justice assists Masayoshi in escaping as he is captured, forcing him to leave as he is placed on his country's most wanted list. Masayoshi's friends and opponents both try their utmost to discover him but remain unsuccessful. Despite this, Shuma continues her investigation, hoping to find him soon. Masayoshi, who has abandoned his hero responsibilities and is now decaying in the streets, has nowhere to go to feed himself or seek assistance. Mary, who had fled Mo and Mizuki after backlashing at them, returns to King Torture's stronghold, recalling the horrors she and Mo endured, and regretting her own worthlessness. Mo and Mizuki eventually catch up with her and remind her how important she is to them, after which the three reconcile. Meanwhile, Masayoshi, still hiding from the government and becoming weak from starvation, goes to a bakery and watches the authorities challenge and declare him an enemy of the peaceful society on a live TV broadcast. He can't bring himself to steal stuff from the store, so he goes to a park to sleep, where he encounters a short-sighted homeless guy who offers him some food. While life seemed unfair to him, the homeless guy describes how Samurai Flamenco taught him to serve others. Masayoshi, encouraged by his comments, rushes toward Hidenori, who has been expecting him to return and seek his assistance. When the authorities learn of his visit to Hidenori's residence, they hurry there with a large number of soldiers. Masayoshi flees with Hidenori and Jun, who had been in communication with each other while he was hidden, to a secret facility where Akira is waiting for them, eventually joined by a familiar face. Mr. Justice reminds them they are running out of time and must go shortly. Masayoshi and Hidenori appear in the Diet the next day to prevent Prime Minister Okuzaki from enacting an anti-superhero measure. Okuzaki admits that he is a flamenco, which sends a shockwave through Masayoshi's body. He dresses himself in a formidable mech suit, fueled by popular backing, and begins battling Masayoshi, overwhelming all of his tactics. Hidenori enters the battle, but is also battered as the flamenco girls make an appearance and repel Okuzaki's men. Ultimately, Akira manages to broadcast the action, and Okuzaki's scheme to the rest of the world on television, drastically dwindling his backing and damaging his suit, permitting Masayoshi and Hidenori to beat him. However, it is quickly discovered that Mr. Justice is an alien flamenco, whose species has supplanted all global governments, which Okuzaki was attempting to stop. When Masayoshi and the rest step outdoors, they are astounded to see a massive spacecraft in the sky. A strange entity known as a Flamencolian comes in front of Masayoshi and the rest, asking to meet with him alone. Hidenori pushes Masayoshi to enter the Flamencolian's starship. He discloses that he controls the minds of 5 billion aliens as they sit on the bank of a river beneath a golden sky, observing the sunset. He further reveals that he is the one accountable for King Torture and from Beyond's creatures, and that evolution is the path to world peace. This erupts Masayoshi in anger, as countless people suffered because of their actions. In an attempt to persuade him to join their cause, the Flamencolian increases in size to assault Masayoshi, who utilizes the Flamencolian's evolutionary mechanism to expand in size as well, transforming into Space Final Flamenco and knocking the Flamencolian into an eternal trip into the interstellar space. Masayoshi is stuck on the moon after the war and is visited by an entity calling itself the universe's will. He reveals that all of Masayoshi's opponents came about because he desired them, offering him the option of continuing to battle evil or living in peace. Masayoshi chooses to travel to his own planet, continuing to be a hero not to battle adversaries but to accomplish what is right. After communicating with his grandfather's soul and understanding the somewhat mundane meaning of flamenco, Masayoshi is sent home, where he meets Hidenori. Masayoshi's life has been tranquil for the past 6 months. As he walks outdoors, he finds people worshipping him and referring to him as their president. Even after a half year, he is still not used to being addressed as president. He then pays a visit to Hidenori to see how he is doing, and Hidenori informs him of his intentions to see his lover for a long-awaited date. Masayoshi informs Mary and the girls, who are all thrilled except for Mary, who appears anxious about it. Masayoshi is dragged along with him to Hidenori's hometown. His mother recalls that Hidenori used to have a girlfriend in high school, who vanished one day and had never been found. She then explains that Hidenori had been sending himself texts, impersonating the girlfriend to maintain his sanity. They both go toward the bus terminal, where they discover Hidenori seated on a bench, staring at his phone. Mary grabs his phone and checks his messages, only to discover that he's been texting himself. Mary shares the evening alongside Mo and Mizuki, since she is depressed after learning about this. Meanwhile, Masayoshi meets a young man named Heiji Sawada, who causes an explosion that destroys Masayoshi's residence. As Masayoshi is left with many unanswered questions about Heiji, he gets a call from him while staying in a hotel, explaining how he became fascinated with him after witnessing his early superhero efforts, deciding he wished to become his sworn enemy, devoted solely to doing bad things to Samurai Flamenco. Masayoshi is even more perplexed when he learns from the authorities that Heiji Sawada purportedly died of sickness a year ago. He then comes upon Heiji on the edge of a river. As he races toward him, all he sees is vacuous air spinning around him. Masayoshi begins to question if he is the ultimate source of all ills, after realizing that the only person who has ever seen or spoken to Heiji is himself. Mary takes the stage for her performance after learning about Heiji, only to discover that Mo and Mizuki have been poisoned. They are rushed to the hospital by security. Mary gets a dejected expression as she finds she can't help her pals. Meanwhile, Joji summons Masayoshi to the hospital, after hearing somebody speak of samurai flamenco before he gets hit by the vehicle, reminding him that he must learn to love to become stronger. Assuming Joji is kidding, Masayoshi argues that he shouldn't be fooling around, especially during these times. Joji states that he is serious. Joji further explains how his becoming a superhero was a form of love he had for helping out people. On his journey home from the hospital, he witnesses other people's relationships with one another. Suma decides to spend some time with Masayoshi and offers to give him guidance about his position, requesting Akira to research Heiji before educating Masayoshi about the many sorts of love, how it is experienced and identified. Akira phones Masayoshi to notify him of the little information he has about Sawada Heiji. Meanwhile, Heiji tricks Hidenori into falling into a trap and abducts him, telling Masayoshi to head back to his former flat. Hidenori describes how, despite his mother's efforts, he began writing notes to himself once his fiancée went missing. His girlfriend's father, finally irritated by receiving texts on his daughter's phone, gives him the cell phone because it simply brings back unpleasant memories, causing him to suffer. Masayoshi suddenly chooses to study hard and join the police department in the hopes of one day locating her. Returning to the present, Heiji tries to provoke Hidenori towards murder by erasing the texts that have been keeping him going all this time. Masayoshi arrives at the flat after learning from Akira that Heiji had his parents fake his death to make Samurai Flamenco into a dark hero by having Hidenori kill him. Masayoshi goes nude to confront him as himself, believing that battling him as Samurai Flamenco will not solve anything. Hidenori tries to point Heiji's rifle at him, but Masayoshi blocks him and calms him down in his own manner, after which Mary apprehends Heiji. 6 months later, a museum honoring heroes is opened, but Masayoshi, who visits Heiji on occasion, continues to function as Samurai Flamenco to assist in the resolution of minor offenses. After the chit-chat, he and Hidenori meet and head towards the museum. On their way, while conversing, Hidenori receives a text from his girlfriend which shocks Masayoshi. Upon questioning, Hidenori reveals that his girlfriend has started messaging him lately. That's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it.